Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Smith and Hesson, and we've really come to the business end of the IPL. Mike Hesson's been in Dubai, it seems like forever, associated, of course, with the Royal Challengers Bangalore. The good news is it hasn't been wasted, Mike Hesson. Good afternoon to you. You have made the playoffs, which is goal number one achieved.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we haven't made the playoffs since 2015, so it's a big effort for the franchise. In the end, we probably stumbled over the line a little bit. Haven't performed so well early on, and not so good the last few games. But in the end, it came down to net run rate and getting the calculators out. We managed to get over the line, so we've got ourselves a chance, which is great.
Yeah, interesting mix in the playoffs as well. How do you assess them? I mean, you've got to win, basically, go through the hard way. And of course, the Mumbai Indians and the Delhi Capitals they've got through to the playoff, which means they win that, they automatically go in the final. So you've got a lot of hard work to do still, Mike, courtesy of an average finish to the round robin phase. How do you rate the sides going in there? Is it on the day? Is it that close?
Look, I think it is. I think if you get away from Sharjah, which is probably the slowest of the surfaces now, so that the toss becomes more important. I think both the other venues are, due as a factor, but so obviously chasing has its advantages, but it's a lot more even. So, and to be fair, every one of those teams has beaten each other at some stage, during the tournament. So, Delhi, we pretty much played the other day in a chance to go through to second and get that easier option. We weren't able to do it. So, I think Mumbai are quite rightfully ranked one. And last night, the Sunrisers Hyderabad sneaked through with they overpowered Mumbai, which were a little bit weaker. They didn't play a couple of their key players, but they certainly deserve to be in, and they're flying high. So we're going to play them on the 6th in a straight knockout game. So can't wait.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting game. Let's look at the makeup. We haven't really focused too much on the Sunrisers. They've got a real Australian connection when they named their initial squad, of course, with Trevor Bayliss, who was the English coach. We know very well he's very associated with Australian cricket. David Warner, captain, also had Mitch Marsh and Billy Stanlake in the mix as well. So they surrounded themselves with sort of an Australian contingent, alongside Johnny Bairstow, of course, Kane, Rashid Khan, Muhammad Nabi. So very experienced and well-performed T20 players. Kane's just gone off the boil a wee bit. Do you expect him to play?
Yeah, I do, and I think the addition to that with Mitch Marsh going out is Jason Holder's come in, and he's actually grabbed his slot in the playing 11 and given them the balance that they required. So previously they'd had Johnny Bairstow, Warner and Kane as three of their overseas, and that sort of blocked up the batting side and left them a little bit more vulnerable bowling-wise. So they made the big call about 3 games ago to leave Johnny Bairstow out, and Riddiman Saha went to the top, and then they let Jason Holder in, and Kane controlled the middle. So they seem to have a better balance. It seems to be working better for them. It allows Kane to, as I said, just look after the younger guys through the middle. And he hasn't had many opportunities, to be fair, of late. They've been chasing some lower scores, and that top order have done a great job. So I would expect them to play. I'd expect them to play a similar 11 to the game they had last night.
A lot of people will be asking, what sort of happened? You guys went through a bit of a slump. What did you put that down to?
Yeah, we had Aaron Finch opening for the first 11 games, and he, as an opening pair, they sort of did okay, but we felt we needed to make a change there. And Josh Phillippe came in, and they did really nicely at the start against Mumbai. And then, to be fair, our lower order batting's struggling a bit. We tried a few different options the last few games, and I think we've stumbled across something at the back end, which is good. And we do rely on our top 4 setting the tone. And we've got a young lad, Devdutt Padikkal, who's second top run scorer in the tournament. We might be third now. He's got 470 runs, and his debut year is only 20. So we sort of base our innings around him and the other top 3 with AB and Virat, and we just haven't quite got the numbers yet out of that group. But that, I guess, presents an opportunity where we've been pretty close in some of those games, and our big boys haven't got massive numbers yet. So, you get to knockout stages and you rely a lot on your big guys doing the job. So, look, it's an exciting week, Smithy, being involved in the IPL finals. And I can tell you from a squad perspective, we sort of see it as as a chance to sort of unleash the demons a little bit of the last week and just go out and play some really aggressive cricket.
Yeah, do you feel as if you're carrying the underdog tag?
I hope so. I quite like that. We sort of our whole mantra has sort of been understate, overachieve. A lot of what RCB's been about has been a lot of play bold, a lot of bravado and stuff. And the last 3 or 4 years, we just haven't been able to back that up on the field. So we've just settled down a little bit in terms of let's just focus on our job and not get too far ahead of ourselves. So as I said, we've got to be in the big dance to give ourselves a chance, and we've obviously got to make the first stage, which is the playoffs. So qualifying is the first bit, and that just gives us an opportunity, which is pretty exciting over the next week.
Let's look at the top individual performers now that the round robin phase is done with. KL Rahul, whose side will not be progressing, the Kings Punjab 11, 670 runs at 55, amazing performance for him. Davey Warner, you'll see him, of course, on the 6th. Shikhar Dhawan, Delhi Capitals, and then two of your lads have snuck into the top 5, and Devdutt Padikkal and Virat Kohli. So tell us a wee bit about Padikkal.
Yeah, he's a smart lad. He's only just turned 20. He was in the squad last year and never played a game. Went and watched him a lot domestically this year. When I was in India, he had a fantastic year in white ball cricket, so both T20 and 50 over cricket. He was the highest run scorer in India. He was a big, tall left-hander, quite elegant through the offside. Plays the pull shot pretty well. He's, quite naive in terms of the demands of international and elite cricket. He's a young, fit lad, but he's found the heat over here a real struggle, which for a young lad has certainly taught him something. So often he's played really nicely and then run out of steam when he's got to sort of 50. So as it's cooling down over here, his numbers are going up because he's able to deal with that humidity and that heat. So that's a work on for him. I think he was unlucky not to get picked in the Indian T20 side. I think he's that good. And I think India are looking for another T20 or a left-hander at the top of the order to replace Shikhar when he goes. So he's an exciting talent, great in the field, and a really smart lad.
Bowling-wise, Rabada has reigned supreme. He's been there or thereabouts the whole time, as have Trent Boult and Jasprit Bumrah. Archer's he's done well for the Rajasthan Royals with 20 wickets at 18.25. And again, Chahal, your spinner, has been the best performed of the spinners. Now, you mentioned going into the slower surface this weekend. Will he be a trump card for you?
Yeah, he will. I mean, we played 3 spinners last game, and to be fair, they all 3 kept us in the game. So Washington Sunder's been amazing at the top for us. Bowls often 3 overs in the power play. And you see him as sort of an orthodox off spinner, but he's a bit better than that. And he will be in that Indian side that we'll see on Sky Sport later in the year. And we introduced a young lad, Shahbaz Ahmed, who played his second game the other night, got 2 for 26 off 4. The wickets suited him, but he's got that ability to sort of go outside the swing, so down the wide line and hit the heels as well. So the spinners are starting to come more into their own. Those seamers you mentioned earlier on have been outstanding the early part of the year. They're very, very good. I mean, Rabada's been exceptional. I guess with Mumbai, because you got 2 or 3 of them, they have to still look to attack them, and that's how those guys keep taking wickets. I guess the beauty of Jofra Archer is he's sort of holding that attack together, and often sides try and just see him out, but you can see by his returns that we're not even able to do that. So he's very, very good, Jofra, and he's stood out certainly in a side that struggled and in the end finished last, but he was outstanding.
On the subject, you mentioned a couple of times, Mike, the subject of India touring Australia. We know the givens that are going to be there. The really, really good players, although there is an injury cloud I have hearing over Rohit Sharma, and as the extent of whether he'll be able to make that tour of Australia, they would really, really miss him. But from what you've seen, particularly in the white ball sort of forms of it, have we got anything really special to look out for in terms of a new name or two?
Yeah, I think there's a young lad, Varun Chakravarti, or CV Varun, who played for KKR this year. I bought him last year at Kings 11 for a huge sum, and he slipped in the shower and fractured his finger and was out of the whole IPL. So I certainly got a bit of grief from the owners over picking someone who never played a game or bowled a couple of overs. And then he got shifted to KKR this year and played every game and has been outstanding. So he's a little bit like Narayan in terms of a mystery spinner. He bowls this little flicker out the front, which goes this way, and then he bowls a googly. So rather than a traditional offer, he runs and bowls a googly, can bowl a top spinner, and he bowls this little carom ball. And he bowls it fast. So he's upwards of 105 kilometres an hour, sort of always attacking the stumps. If you've been watching the IPL, he's knocked MS Dhoni over a couple of times, which was his idol growing up. He's an architect. He's an amazing lad. He's basically tried to look after his family for many years. An architect was only able to make a handful of dollars a year in that role, so he tried to give cricket a go. He was a pace bowler. Got a major injury, took up spin, and then within sort of 3 years, he's playing for India. So, amazing story. And he's very quiet lad who just goes about his work. So, I'm sure he'll play on this tour. So, keep an eye out for him.
Well, indeed. I'm so looking forward to that tour. Starting on Sky Sports throughout the summer, it's going to be one of my highlights of watching anyway. Look, let's turn, while we're on the subject of cricket down under, and our summer begins not too far away either. In terms of the Plunket Shield, I know you might have kept a little bit of an eye on some of the stats coming out of there, but there's some interesting conundrums, I think, for the selectors. Are they going to play Devon Conway? 2 games averaging 58.25 already. Are they going to play him? If so, where do they play him? And how will that batting lineup look? Because to my way of thinking, up until now, Will Young has been the one in waiting almost.
Yeah, look, it is a good problem to have, Smithy, isn't it? I think, for many years we've struggled to get a solid top 6, 7 on the park, let alone have guys as backups that are performing so well. And I guess with Devon Conway, he's also scored those runs on 2 pretty challenging wickets when everyone around him struggled as well. So he certainly showed the selectors again that he's ready if required. I see Henry Nicholls hasn't been on the park yet, obviously with a small injury. Selectors will be wary of that. But he's, outside of that, I think the top 6 is probably going to be pretty solid from a Blackcaps point of view. If it's not, though, I think Devon Conway's and red ball's probably the next one. I think white ball, Will Young, one-day cricket, I think he's definitely the next guy that deserves that opportunity.
Okay, so you at this stage, you'd still open with Latham and Blundell?
Look, I would. I see Tom Blundell hasn't set the world on fire, but you can't go back too far where he was, he obviously got his 100 in Australia. So, I think selectors initially will reward, players that have done well for them in recent times. And then I think they'll look at the form book from there. So, but it's nice to have some options. Blundell, I'm sure he'd like to get a score under the board before the Test series starts, if not more than one. And I'm sure that's something that selectors will be sitting there wanting to see as well.
Bowling-wise, of course, Kyle Jamieson just hit a stretch so early, given the opportunity last year towards the end of our summer. He started off with a Hissner or Mike, 19 wickets at 8.8. Again, Matt Henry is out with injury. It looks to me, at the moment, given fitness, Trent Boult and Kyle Jamieson are the 2 certainties. And then we've got that age-old problem of, do we keep going with Wags? Where's Tim Southey at? I can give you an update on injuries if you like. Precautionary back problem for Tim Southey, likely to be back in round 4. This is just hot off the press, by the way. Neil Wagner has a hip groin problem, awaiting scans, hopeful of returning in round 4. Colin de Grandholm awaiting scan results, hopefully by the end of tomorrow. Sounds like our whole test squad here. Henry Nicholls has got a calf problem, targeting round 4. Ajaz Patel, left calf, awaiting scan results. Matt Henry, of course, broken right thumb. All test match candidates. I mean, and when you look at the lack of cricket they've had, the lack of activity they've had, you scratch your head and you think, how the hell do you get to this stage where you've got a MASH unit waiting and you're about 3 weeks away from a test match? So that brings, your fit guys, and hopefully Trent Boult stays that way. So you Jamieson, but your next 2, Southey and Wagner, are out of action at the moment.
Yeah, look, that's really concerning because I mean, Wagner, I see he got 4 wickets in the first innings of that last game, and then he bowled a 2 or 3 overs, so that makes sense in terms of him getting an injury. Southey obviously getting a 5 for, was in red hot form as well. So before they got injured, they looked like they were ticking along quite nicely from the bits that I watched. So that's a shame, and obviously a huge amount of talent there, but hopefully they will be back in time. I think we know that Wagner adds that variety to the attack, and he's, whenever he's had an opportunity, he's done a great job. So you got 4 good ones there. I guess you just got to wait and see. But de Grandhomme's the interesting one for me because he gives the side that balance. He gives the side that more seam bowling option that on green surfaces early on in New Zealand. Often, he's obviously the slower of the bowlers, but he does provide that ability to nip the ball around probably the most. And he's at that optimum swing pace where the ball doesn't have to, where other guys struggle to get swing, he gets it. And batting at 7, he just provides that nice balance. So I'd like to see him back in that side for sure. Come the start of the season against the West Indies, because they don't perform so well when it nips around.
I'll just go to the last category. I think BJ Watling keeps his job, obviously. There's no problem there. Astle, of course, Todd Astle retired, surprisingly. Once he got an opportunity in Australia, he then turned around and quickly retired. And I didn't think he was dreadful at the Sydney Cricket Ground. He just didn't have any runs to play with. So that makes it interesting in that spinning spot. You've got the injured Patel. Will Somerville, of course, has been used. And I suppose you still have to consider, in a small way, Mitchell Santner in the mix, particularly if de Grandhomme's a problem and you need an all-rounder around that 7 or 8 spot.
Yeah, I think you're right, Smithy. I think he comes back in the mix if de Grandhomme's not there, because that very much is a 4th bowler or 4th seam bowling option or a holding role, which Mitch Santner has performed that holding role for New Zealand very well. He goes at 2 and over. It doesn't pick up a huge amount of wickets. We know that, so he's probably not a threat from a wicket-taking point of view. But it does allow you to then rotate your seamers at the other end. So, and if you need someone to bat potentially, 7 or 8, or more likely 7, then he's got that batting pedigree to be able to do that job, probably more so than the other spin bowlers. So I think he comes into the mix. He hasn't played a lot of cricket over here. He played 2, maybe 3 games in the IPL. Actually did okay when he did play. But yeah, I mean, he needs to get back there, which he will be, and play some first-class cricket quickly and show that he's an option. Because New Zealand, BJ Watling at 6, you can't go straight into the bowlers starting at 7, especially on green surfaces early on in the season.
West Indies are currently quarantining in Christchurch, of course, Mike. They've got to have 3 COVID tests. They've had the first one and they all were negative, so that's good news. I think they've got another one on day 6 and another one on about day 12. So much as the same situation, you know that very well, of course. So everything's progressing quite nicely for them. It's just been announced they'll have 2 warm-up games, 3-day games against New Zealand A sides. Both of those will be played in Queenstown, which is cool that great venue is going to get a little bit of cricket, and they've been devoid of action and missed out on a bit throughout this COVID period. The other interesting announcement, Mike, that came through today was that the New Zealand batting coach replacing Peter Fulton, who replaced Craig McMillan, will be Luke Ronchi. Now, it might be a bit of a head-scratcher for some because Luke Ronchi goes from the fielding coach to the batting coach. And Luke Ronchi, we know, is a dashing player, middle-order player, dangerous player too when he got in the mood. How does he fit into that role? Just go straight across from the fielding coach to batting coach. And what do you think Luke Ronchi brings to that role?
Yeah, I mean, he has been on 2 tours as a batting coach before. So you're right, he was fielding coach. But they did like the qualities that he brought as a batting coach. And I think Peter Fulton missed out on a tour and some home games. And Luke Ronchi came and did that. So they obviously liked what they saw from what he was able to offer. Luke, within the group when I was there, was always a calm head. He was always a really analytical thinker. Not so much about his own game, but he certainly talked to a lot of guys about their batting and understood sort of how they were going through things. He's got a great relationship with Kane Williamson, where they talk batting a lot, and they sort of have, I wouldn't say they have similar philosophies, but they understand each other and they understand what they offer each other from a batting point of view. Luke was often the guy within the group where if players were struggling and, as I said, wanted to talk about batting, they'd go and have a chat with him because he had a lot of good ideas and a lot of good theories. but then also coming up to games, he also kept things simple. So they must have liked what he brought when he was within the group. That calmness. He's not, he's not overpowering. He's not in your face trying to change technique, which when you're at that level is really important in terms of what you offer. It'll be a big shift for him. He did a little bit of work at the PSL. I know, sort of in a mentor over there. He performed very well himself, but he often assisted Dean Jones sort of around the batting side. So he has had some experience in that role, and he's a really good team man around the group. As I said, he's obviously got some skills to offer, but it'll be a learning curve for him. Going into that and taking on that job full time will be a big change, and the fact he's going to go back on tour full time is something that obviously he wants to do. He's got a young family, but obviously he's keen to get stuck into it and offer something back to the Blackcaps. So, look, I like the appointment. I think he's a really good team man, and as I said, he knows the right time to speak and the right time to just back off.
Okay, well, just personally, Mike, what happens in your terms of your movement? So obviously, the longer you're in, the longer you stay. If once the season over there or the IPL is over for you in particular, do you come home for Christmas? Or, I mean, you have to quarantine obviously when you do, but what are your movements?
Yeah, we've got a few days of review over here with the board and the owners. So once that's finished, jump back into New Zealand and have some 14 days in quarantine. So then looking forward to seeing my family. So hopefully arrive back in New Zealand start of December. Obviously going to continue doing some work for Sky Sport, over the summer and beyond. Obviously we've got plenty of cricket from Australia. Just looking forward to being around the family over the summer. There'll be an auction for the IPL, so we'll have to head back over here at some stage for the auction. So there'll be plenty of planning around that. And, just enjoy a little bit of the New Zealand summer, Smithy.
Ditto. After, I think, since 1975, I haven't had Christmas and New Year off, Mike. So I'm looking forward to it, if nothing else. So, hey, look, good luck on Monday. Fantastic that you've got this far. All our eyes, of course, will be on you. As I said before, we've sort of adopted your side as ours. So we're very interested in the end result of that. So all the best against Kane and his mob. I hope you get through to the final, mate, and win the whole damn deal. We look forward to seeing you at home. We might even, if you progress anyway, or if you're around, have a chat next week at some stage, eh?
Sounds great. Thanks, Smithy.
Cheers. Talk soon. All the best, Hess.